Hi everyone, I have two resources here I'm going to share with you and go over some of the accessibility that's with them. The first one here is a PowerPoint. I actually chose this one because it's what I'm using currently in my class, and as I was going through it I did see flaws with it, so I thought it'd be a good resource to use. And then the Word document I'm going to show you goes with the PowerPoint, and it's a practice of what we're covering in the PowerPoint itself. So the first slide, there's the titling to begin with is probably or is not compliant and would be difficult to follow in that there's multiple sections linked together, and it wouldn't be very straightforward for somebody who wasn't reading it off the PowerPoint or that I was going along with it. Luckily, with PowerPoint, there's a lot of different things you can do with manipulating it in terms of making general text larger, and you'll see later in this PowerPoint that there are some areas where it's smaller than it should be, but there are ways that you can create or enlarge the text, and a lot of it comes back to the teacher design. So are you progressing through it as the teacher, or are the students kind of watching a pre-recorded option where you're already self-pacing it? So some of that can be determined based on how the presentation's given. So it could be self-paced by the student, but if it's paced by the teacher, that can present some issues as well. The second slide here, I noticed as I was going through this PowerPoint with my class of honors students who are all here and have access to me, and I can answer questions and go back over things. I'm the deliverer of this information, and a lot of the information in this PowerPoint is in images, and the images don't have any additional text with them detailing the image itself or what the diagram is showing or containing. So that would definitely be an issue if a student was left with only getting the audio for the text on the PowerPoint itself. A lot of the information in this PowerPoint exists only in the images. So I would definitely have to go back and create the text boxes or the labels for the images in order for this information within the PowerPoint to be accessible for everyone. Moving along, again, there's an image here, and some of the text even in this image is not so great. Of course, if it's full screen, it'll be bigger, but the information is still not going to be accessible for a student who's not looking at this slide itself. And I did go through and look at what it would look like as an outline, and it's not great. So I do have reoccurring titles on consecutive slides, which is not good or accessible for the outline version for a student who is having this read aloud. And it's very disorganized. There's really no system to the outline itself, because all the slides are made similarly in that it's just a series of bullet points, and like I said, I do have consecutive slides with the same title. So that would have to be changed as well. This fourth slide here, so I like this map, but it is definitely not a strong image as I think about it now. It's kind of confusing. It's not very clear in the image itself. I do have a link here, and it does say where it would take you to or what it's related to. So it's a video relating sickle cell and malaria. However, it would be better if the video itself was embedded into the PowerPoint. But again, there's no caption with the video, so the student loses all of that information. Again, same problems where a lot of the information in this PowerPoint exists only in the images. The outline, there is no outlining, it's just bullet points. There's repetitive titling. So we have a lot of the same issues. Here I run into the issue where I've now tacked on a second video in addition to this first one here that does have a nice title that tells you what it is or where it will take you. This one I did in haste. I wanted it to appear here so it would remind me to show the video, but I didn't give it a nice title as I should have, nor did I even embed it into the PowerPoint itself. I did the same thing here. So I have one that's a little bit better doesn't really tell you what the video is itself. And then I have one here I added in addition to. Again, a lot of the information is only going to be included in the images. So this is a very image-rich PowerPoint where students could be losing a lot of information. So this is where the text starts to get a little bit small. I went through and checked this PowerPoint for compliance and accessibility, and it was talking about the shapes, which I don't think apply here because this is just kind of an additional tag. It might be misleading if this is being read aloud because it's kind of misplaced, but the text itself is pretty small, and then I use this presentation year after year, and as you saw, I add to it or take things away. And I had not actually checked this link since I used this last, and it in fact didn't work whenever I was giving the presentation. I left it for this purpose, but I do need to go back and either figure out if I can source the original website or video, or it create something else, or just get rid of it altogether. So that's definitely an issue if a student's trying to access something and it takes them to a place that doesn't exist. Again, outlining's the issue here. There's really no system to it. The text is pretty small. The contrast is really good, I think, between the two options, and with PowerPoint you do have some options with changing out the themes and trying to modify it if this is too vibrant or distracting. Then there's options where the student can then change that along with the size of the text. And again, the reoccurring titles here. So we had incomplete dominance on slide 9, we have it again on 10. And this slide is almost completely just an image with no text at all, which can definitely present an issue for a student who's not able to access that information. And as I said, I'm going over all of this in class. I'm walking them through the images. They're taking notes and things like that. So there is the audio that goes along with it. And if I were to use this online, I would also add in audio. I would never expect a student to be able to complete this PowerPoint on their own, just because it does require a lot of explaining based on the images. Again, there's no caption with this image. Text is pretty small. Text is also misplaced on this one, which is a little bit odd. There's no formatting. So the issues that we saw earlier are pretty consistent. Again, this one's a little bit odd. Just a little funny cartoon here, but again, there's no caption with it. This slide is entirely images, and there's tons of information looking at blood typing and how blood type is determined or what factors it's based on. And students who can't visually see this are going to miss all this information. Again, a lot of pictures. Text is kind of small, super tiny here. Lots of images without captions. I also don't have great definitions in this presentation, so that was kind of the student's responsibility, but going back and defining things or creating a glossary, I know PowerPoint does have some options of doing that, and students obviously have access to other resources, but as it being included in this, I didn't include any definitions or defining of terms, and there's a lot of different terms in this presentation that students would need to know. So like I said, I chose this one intentionally, partially because it's what we were currently finishing today in class, so it's kind of at the forefront of my mind, but also at the same time, it shows a lot of the places where, or the shortcomings of putting together a presentation that truly would be accessible to all students. All right, my second resource is a practice worksheet that goes along with the presentation I just gave. So there wasn't any real application in the presentation for students to be able to practice the skills within the presentation, but it just followed the presentation. So it's divided into two sections, incomplete dominance and co-dominance. There is a nice title here, a random image here, completely unimportant to what the worksheet is actually based on. One thing that's lacking in this is space for students to complete the work on the sheet itself. So students are expected to have additional paper where they then format their responses on that paper. So this requires them to make Punnett squares and determine what their alleles will be and complete all of that on a separate sheet of paper. So that's something that could be added to this in making it more accessible. The text size is pretty good, I would say. It could probably be a little bit larger. As you see here, it's only a size 11 font, so if this were online or in a handout, it's not very large for many students, but that would be an easy fix to try and enlarge it so it would be more accessible for everyone. But other than that, some of these, side notes here, they're organized similar to a outline, so ABC, which I think would be read consecutively. There are some factors that I'm not sure if it would be captioned this way, but one thing that's very important with this worksheet is whether it's referring to a capital letter or a lowercase letter. If it just states the letter itself, then it's completely useless, and I think it would be important to go back and identify or actually include that in the text, capital or lowercase, for students to be able to make sense of what it is on this page, because it does require them to, they're different, and they use them differently, and then it has a different outcome as well. So all of that is going to be very important for students to see. But as you can see, it's a pretty basic kind of worksheet, the contrast black on white. There's a chart here. It does have titles, and then underneath there's people, and then the blood type that they are. There's some blanks, which I'm not sure how that would translate exactly. But overall, just adding in some extra space, making sure that the letters are read correctly is a big piece of the puzzle. Increasing the size of the text would all really help increase the accessibility of this particular worksheet.